Hello again, Bio245. This is Vanessa, and we're going to talk today about some of the terms on your list. And it says respiratory system physiology. Don't worry, it's not so much phys, so we're not going to be talking about gas exchange and all that stuff. What we're going to be talking about are the volumes of the lung and also the capacities. There's only a few that you need to know, and you don't need to know the exact volume, so you don't need to know the milliliters or liters or what have you. There's just a couple things that you need to know. So I drew these handy dandy lines, and you're gonna hopefully follow along with me, and I'll kind of show you what this graph means, because that's how we're gonna ask you some stuff, or we're gonna ask you definitionally. But this graph is typically how these things are represented. So first off, basically the way that this graph works is it goes the opposite way of what a normal graph would do. I don't know why, but it starts over here. So you'll see me going from this direction over. But basically this graph is representing breathing in and breathing out. So you can imagine that through the center here would be like a dashed line. Well, let's just make it real quick. But this dashed line is kind of the center, sort of. There you go. So that dashed line is kind of the center, all right? So let's just start at the dashed line. So there's something first that's called tidal volume, and what tidal volume is a little bit of space in the air. So in other words, the lung is mostly inflated, but there's a little bit of space in the air dedicated to just normal breathing. So I'm just chilling right now, not really super exerting myself or anything. So if I were just breathing without talking, just relaxing, I'm going to be accessing just a little space in my lung that's called the tidal volume. So the lung's not going to super inflate, it's not going to super deflate, it's just kind of has air in it. So the way that's represented on this graph is like so. So inhaling, hopefully you can see that. So inhaling, exhaling, inhaling, exhaling. And you can see it's just a very little consistent wave. There you go, so there was some shine on there. There's a little consistent wave that goes along here, but that's just normal breathing, kind of like the tide, right? So that's your tidal volume. Then, sometimes you take a deep breath. So maybe you're about to dive into a pool, so you take a deep breath, or maybe you're about to speak, so you take a big breath. But when you take a big breath, you inspire air, so you take it into the lungs. So here you can see, there we go. We're inhaling a lot of air, and then it peaks out about there, okay? So this here, from this blue line to this blue line, that's extra space that you can inflate the lung, and the lung can only inflate to a certain point, okay? So this here, this from this blue line to this blue line is called your inspiratory reserve volume, and I have it here shortened up as IRV, so inspiratory reserve volume. But anyway, so we've inhaled, and we've inhaled as much as we possibly can to the top of our inspiratory reserve volume. Then typically if you're going to inhale a big breath, you're probably going to try and exhale as much as possible too. So usually how you'll see this graph go is that we've taken a big breath. So we've taken a big breath maybe before diving into a pool, and we're going to exhale as much as possible, because if you're swimming you don't want to have inflated lungs. It's just not as it doesn't work as well. So anyway, so then you blow out all that air, and you can see that we go past our tidal volume here, and we dip down to here to this next blue line. Yeah, you can see that, cool. Okay. And then eventually it's going to come back up. So what you're seeing here is we've expelled our inspiratory reserve. We've also expelled our tidal volume, and now we're expelling the rest of the possible reachable air or space that we can access in the lungs. Now this is called expiratory reserve volume. When you blow out, you're expiring air. So here we go. And this point right here, this low blue line, that's the most that you can possibly blow out. So like I've expelled as much air as I possibly can. I can't go anywhere. So I've reached the bottom of my expiratory reserve volume. It's volume you have on reserve to blow out, right? And then eventually you can come back up and you can stabilize and access just your tidal volume again, okay? Now you'll notice that beneath this solid line I have this dashed line and I have RV. So this solid line to this dashed line here is just a little bit of space left in the lung, because your lung needs to be at least slightly inflated so the tissue doesn't stick together. Remember, we have delicate simple squamous epithelia at the ends of our bronchi, making up the tissue of our lungs and interacting with the capillary beds to absorb oxygen and to, get rid of CO2 and all that other kind of stuff. So basically this volume here is just the little amount of space that we need, the little amount of air that we need to keep our lungs inflated no matter how much air we blow out, okay? And they call this residual volume. the only way you'd be able to assess residual volume is if you had somebody blow out as much air as they possibly could, yanked off their lungs, stuck a straw in it, in the trachea, and then took a rolling pin and just flattened out those lungs and got the rest of that air. Then you'd be able to assess what that residual volume of that particular individual is. Then they'd be dead, so it'd be kind of worthless information. But anyway, so from here to here, we have residual volume. Now, there's a couple other words on your list as well. You'll notice that there's vital capacity and total lung capacity. And the way I think about it is like this. Your vital capacity is the volume that you can access, or the capacity you can access in your lungs at any given time to stay alive. So if you want to run away, because this was vital to survival, right? If you want to run away, you're taking a big breath, you're exhaling big breaths, you're breathing fast, and you're breathing hard. So from all this usable stuff here, that's your vital capacity. So there you go. VC, written really terribly. There you go. Vital capacity is all that stuff. Okay, then you notice that there's also total lung capacity. Now, as you can imagine, that's going to be vital capacity plus that little bit of residual volume down here. So all of this together, there you go, is your total lung capacity. And so you can see I drew all the way across. Okay, so your vital capacity plus your residual volume is your total lung capacity. So basically, for the practical, we could ask you definitionally, like, what volume are you using when you're just at rest, breathing normally? What volume are you using when you take in a big breath? What volume do you exclude when you want to measure vital capacity? What volumes do you include if you want to do total lung capacity? We could also toss out a graph and be like, okay, what volume does this part of the wave represent here? Or whatever, okay? So just be prepared and just know those definitionally. Anyway, I hope that was useful, and I'll see you for the next video.
Where's the thingy? I can't find the thingy.